The sun had begun to set, and the darkness of the night was slowly arising. As the last chapter of your life set, this new scary journey was set in front of you, and you without a clue what to do about it. Your parents just finished moving the last couple things, and they were on their way, leaving you there on your own for the first time. There you are, standing alone in the dark, looking up at the 9-story behemoth that is Creswell, and you're left with only one thought. What now? College is a scary place for an 18-year-old, especially me. There were only 6 people total from my high school that went to UGA, and I really wasn't close with any of them. All my best friends went to other schools. Essentially, I was alone here, away from family, away from friends, away from anything familiar. Now, this isn't everyone's experience, but even for people coming in with close friends, it's still a new, equally wonderful and terrifying place where you can get your first taste at real independence. Now, this is something that you can take advantage of and get a good start in college, or something you can take for granted and end up making poor decisions to get a rough start in college. Unfortunately for me, it was the latter. My first taste of freedom was wasted and took a toll on my school and my mental health. But that's why I'm here today. I want to tell you all my story, illustrating my mistakes and the repercussions that came with it. I've made a lot of mistakes in college, but after today, hopefully you won't have to make the same ones I have. So first, I would like to tell you all about my first couple weeks at UGA. My freshman year was the fall of 2020, which, as most of you know, was the peak of COVID. Now, this meant that in-person classes were not really an option. Instead, all of my classes were on Zoom. So for the first couple of weeks, I didn't really take class seriously. It didn't feel real to me. I'd never met any of my professors or any of my classmates. So as far as I was concerned, all these people weren't all that real. I would wake up for my 10:20 and 10:15, log into my Zoom, turn off my camera and go back to sleep. All my other classes, I would turn off my camera and play Mario Kart on my Wii. I would do this every day for the first couple of weeks, not realizing what I was doing. And while I unlocked most of the characters and bikes and carts, I was falling way behind in my classes. At one point, I realized that I really had only done 1 or 2 assignments. This shocked me for a second, what I had been doing. I looked back and there were assignments I didn't even know that I had due. I remember thinking to myself, something has to change. Something did. A day or two after that conversation, I went to Georgia Southern to visit my best friend for the weekend. In my mind, this was the last weekend of me doing nothing. This was a chance at a break and a fresh start for me when I got back. The weekend came and went, but when I got home, I got a call from one of my friends that I visited telling me that he tested positive for COVID and that I should get tested. And this made me and my roommate freak out for a little bit, but when we calmed down, we scheduled appointments and went and got tested. Fortunately, we both tested positive. Instant panic came through our minds, but we calmed down and informed the university of all the places we'd been so that they can contact people. And we had to do a quarantine, a mandatory 14-day quarantine. I had to move across campus by myself to Payne Hall, where I stayed in the graduate assistant suite on the bottom floor with my own door to outside, where I could move in without using any of the main halls. I was truly alone, and now trapped, and now sick. But COVID didn't really hit me super hard with symptoms, but the one symptom I did have was exhaustion, and that carried its weight for the rest of my symptoms. I would be sleeping at least 15 hours of the day all of those days because I was just so exhausted. Any plan I had about getting my life together was gone. Since it was online school anyway, I wasn't excused from my work or class, but I also just couldn't stay awake long enough to do any of my assignments or pay attention because I was just so exhausted. I was falling even more behind every day. And this time not just in my schoolwork, but in my mental health. Being trapped in that suite for 14 days alone was the hardest 2 weeks of my life. When those 2 weeks hit, I immediately started feeling my anxiety rapidly increasing. The last 4 to 5 days of the pain quarantine, when I wasn't sleeping, I was having panic attacks. And when I wasn't having panic attacks, I was sleeping. I started going insane in that suite and started not even recognizing who I was. By the time I got out of there, there was no hope left in my body. I was defeated. My anxiety kept making me think, there's nothing you can do about those classes now. You're too far gone. Might as well just smoke weed and play video games all day. That'll make you feel better. But every time it just got worse and worse, and I could feel myself losing it. I ended that first semester with a .88 GPA. Wow. I had never failed a class in my life before, but I failed two that semester, and by the grace of God, I failed only those two with D's and everything else. I was embarrassed, disappointed, upset, anxious, depressed. The list goes on and on. This was rock bottom for me. The great thing about rock bottom, though, is you can only go up. Now, as bad as this was, I started to get help from my friends, from my family, and from my advisors. I started going to class and doing all my assignments and studying for tests and quizzes. Now, of course, this wasn't an immediate change. My second semester was better, but not by a lot. But every semester here, I've progressed, and that's the measure I'm most proud of today. Today, I have a 2.43 GPA. Still not great, but in 4 semesters, I went from a .88 to 2.43, and that's almost 2 whole points, and I'm only climbing. These stories were meant to highlight crucial mistakes that I've made. First, you got to be organized. First, you must have an agenda in which you have days and times set for you to do your assignments. Second, not only go to class, but pay attention in class and take good notes. Seems simple, but I know that it can get hard. But those days that are hard are the most important ones to go to because it makes the easier ones that much easier. And lastly, and most importantly, ask for help. Yes, you are independent for the first time, but that does not mean abandoning help from others. Whenever you're struggling in a class, get a tutor or a friend that knows what they're talking about. And whenever you're struggling with mental health, please, please, please seek out help, whether it be from a friend, a family member, or a professional. It's just not worth it to keep it bottled up. It's sharing stories like these that have helped me progress and push past where I once was. And if everyone shares their story, it'll make it a lot easier on the next generation to avoid the same mistakes. Thank you for your time.